All right. We'll get rolling here in just a second. Let some people roll in here as we get going. We'll go for about an hour today. We'll talk football. We'll talk basketball. Obviously, Auburn, Vanderbilt tomorrow. And you got Florida Atlantic exhibition game today. So we're literally doing a happy hour 4 to 5 today. And then we're going over to the basketball game at right after this. Basketball game's not on TV, by the way. So radio and following along on the corner. Those are your choices. We'll let some people populate. As always, shoot your questions. I'll answer every question I can in the next hour. So we'll go through all of that. Anything you got, shoot them in there. Cole is going to try to join us. I don't know what time. We'll see. We'll see when he can. Live at Session Cocktails in downtown Auburn, Magnolia Avenue. They're already busy. It's so funny the last 3 weeks with it being an away weekend. It's wild how different it is at 3:30, 4:30, how different downtown is. You can tell it's a home weekend as people are populating downtown. Traffic's already busy. People are getting down here, eating dinner, doing drinks. It's already real busy. So it's a home weekend for sure. Session's already getting crowded. I mean, they just opened a little bit ago, and they're already getting crowded with people coming in here and having happy hour drinks 4 to 7. Of course, they're open on Sundays as well. So if you're in town or whatever, come on Sunday. 12 to 5, they're open if you're around. If you stay in town, come have a drink before you leave town. Or if you're around Auburn, come watch some pro games, things like that. And it'll be fun, man. Session, they're rolling. They're kicking it. They've been busy this week, Halloween, all that jazz. Busy. So come check them out. Tell them we sent you, please. They're a great place. Hey, also, by the way, let's talk football. Let's talk basketball too. Let's talk basketball too. Let's talk both. So if anybody listen to basketball, let's do basketball. Let's do football. We'll do it all. Because I'm excited about basketball, man. I'm excited about basketball. Gonna have another good team, phenomenal schedule. It's gonna be a lot of fun. What you got, Magic? Can we get a film review for basketball? Should I call those for football? Yeah, that might be. I don't know. I mean, that's tougher just because I don't know how we can access a lot of basketball tape. I mean, we could get some of it on. I guess most games are televised now, but I don't know. I have to write a lot about basketball, so I'm not sure if I can break away to do film rooms. But if we can't do film rooms, maybe we'll try to do some written thoughts or some analysis afterwards on maybe a couple things they did well, a couple things they didn't do well. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. Basketball's a little easier to kind of see what's going on. You know what I mean? 5-on-5, you kind of can tell if a guy gets beat 1-on-1. There's only so many guys on the court. Football, there's 22 guys. So you might completely miss a matchup that you see later on. Basketball's pretty apparent in terms of if a guy doesn't box out, if a guy doesn't play good defense, if there's a turnover, everything's kind of right in front of you with basketball to some degree in terms of whether you execute it or not, to be honest. What you got, Bill? Odds Auburn gets 6 wins if we win tomorrow. I feel like A&M and Bama are possible to beat as well. Yeah, I mean, I think with each win, I mean, you win tomorrow, you get to 4. We talked about this in the podcast. You win tomorrow, and you get to 4. Now you've got 2 in a row. You've got some real confidence and some real momentum. La Monroe comes in here, decent team, but you've now got hopefully regained some momentum. Take care of business, and then all bets are off against A&M. You've now won 3 in a row, and you've got a chance to secure a bowl win by beating Texas A&M. Not to mention just a top 5, 6-ish type team coming into your house. I think all bets are off if that happens coming in, if A&M comes in. And so I know that A&M will be a favorite, and I know people are probably on the A&M side nationally. They're going, A&M doesn't really have much until they play Texas. Well, let's wait and see. If Auburn beats Vanderbilt, beats La Monroe, and they got a 3-game winning streak, that game, Auburn could be sitting at what do they be at? They'll be at they'll be at 4 or 5. They'll be 5-5. You know, on paper you might look at it and say Auburn's sitting there 5-5, but nationally that game will get attention. Might even be the ABC. I don't know if it's selected yet, but nationally that game gets attention, and I think all bets are off. A&M's a great team. They're playing really good, but if Auburn can build some momentum. And I even talked about it. Look, A&M would be your best bet, obviously, at home. I even talked about it on the podcast. I said, listen, going to Tuscaloosa, tall task, right? Alabama's still very talented. They're still very good. And you got to try to go there to win your 6th game is going to be a tough one, but I'm kind of taking a step back of maybe where I've been most of the season, which is pretty much just counting the Iron Bowl as a loss. Like, if Auburn loses and it comes down to the Iron Bowl to try to get bowl eligible, I'm just like, it's not going to happen. I'm taking a step back from that. I mean, Alabama's good, but they have absolutely shown weaknesses this year. They've lost. I mean, they've lost a couple times. So, you know, if Auburn can start to continue to find something offensively, running the football and knowing kind of how to put Peyton in good situations, and the defense can continue to grow. I mean, Auburn's not a world beater, but if they can kind of continue to put some pieces together, there's no reason they shouldn't be able to go in there and compete. Now, Milroe presents a lot of problems, but in that game's a month away or whatever. But Auburn can go in there and compete in that game, but you don't want that to be 4 bowl games. Beat Vanderbilt, beat La Monroe, and then try to build momentum and get A&M in here. Taylor says, any behind-the-scenes intel on the Kite situation? Saw him miss some practices. Anything you can elaborate on? No, not really. I mean, you know, his reps were already going down. He already sort of disappeared. Like, really early in the year, you saw him get into some games and saw him make a play here and there, a little bit inconsistent. And then, yeah, you already kind of saw his reps going down. And so, no, not surprised, really. Sort of saw it coming. So, and honestly, not a big loss. Like, not a big loss at all. Not even really a loss. I mean, he's played some snaps, but hasn't really done a whole lot. Auburn's recruited well in the secondary. So that was almost kind of a thing like, okay, Antonio Kite's no longer on the team, moving on. And it's just sort of not really much of an issue for me. Decent potential, but it'll be tough now that he's been at Bama and now Auburn. Like, I don't know what he's going to end up doing, but Auburn Vanderbilt tomorrow. Give me score predictions. Zach will post them. I want scores, maybe a player of the game, maybe what you think is the key to the game, and we'll put those up. Let's talk about them. We all picked Auburn. Jeffrey Cole, myself, all picked Auburn across the board. Jeffrey got aggressive. Jeffrey picked Auburn by 2 touchdowns. I wouldn't go that far until I see it. You know, could Auburn? Yeah, Vanderbilt's fairly well coached. Could Auburn win by 2 touchdowns? Sure. I mean, they just won by 2 touchdowns at Kentucky. Kentucky's not as good as Vanderbilt. Auburn should have won by more. Auburn should have beat Oklahoma by 2 touchdowns. Now, granted, both those teams have not been playing as well as Vanderbilt. The interesting thing about Saturday is this. Well, a couple things. Obviously, the Diego Pavia, Jerry Kill, Tim Beck, that trio, that's obviously, I think, a dominating storyline because they've gotten Hugh Freeze's number twice in 2 years, embarrassing losses. So is that a real thing, or are those just completely unique circumstances? And this is a unique circumstance, and Auburn takes care of business. But the other thing to watch with Vanderbilt is, one, their marquee performances this year were at home. Away from home, they haven't looked quite the same. 1, 2, you look at Vanderbilt in recent weeks. They played Missouri, lost. They played Bama, Kentucky, and then they played Texas. Pretty tough 4 games, pretty physical 4 games. And now they're on the road at Auburn. And so I wonder if things start to catch up to Vanderbilt a little bit in terms of Pavia kind of running around and being sort of a Johnny Manziel type player. And maybe Vanderbilt caught Bama off guard a little bit. I don't know. I just think Vanderbilt's had a pretty physical little road here lately. Auburn did have a bye week somewhat recently. They're back home. Auburn's got some momentum. It could be a situation where Vanderbilt is at a part of the season where they maybe hit a wall a little bit, hit a little skid. Maybe Auburn's got some momentum and can take advantage of that. Crowd should be great. Early game, great weather. It's important to get out to a good start. You know, Hugh Freeze talked about not having the ball till 5 minutes in the first quarter last year. So I think a good start right there, maybe even get going up, would be big. Hugh Freeze talked about how uncomfortable he's been playing New Mexico State last year because they hold the ball. And even looking at what Vanderbilt did against Alabama, if you play keep away with Hugh Freeze, it makes him very uncomfortable. And that's not a place that you feel good if you're an Auburn fan thinking about an uncomfortable Hugh Freeze calling plays and managing the game. Kind of makes you a little nervous. So I think Auburn getting out front early would be really, really big to relieve some stress and pressure. If Vanderbilt starts to control the ball a little bit, try to get an early lead and relieve some of that right off the bat. But you got Dylan. I believe DeMarcus Schroeder will be key in this game. This could be the game here that really shows his skill set. Yeah, it'll be interesting. Obviously he broke out in that Oklahoma game, spying. I can't remember the quarterback's name now. That replaced Jackson Arnold. And Riddick played well that game. And then he's played a little bit more. This is definitely a game that could call for a spy and spying situations. Absolutely. Riddick is definitely athletic enough to handle Pavia. I mean, the quarterback at Oklahoma, that freshman, was more athletic, faster than Pavia. Pavia is an absolute playmaker. Michael Hawkins. Thank you, Zach. But Pavia is such a playmaker, but Riddick's got the athletic ability. And he looks pretty good and comfortable in terms of when to sort of trigger and take off and when to stay back. And so that'll be key. That'll be key. I mean, really, it was those third downs. Really, so the key really for Auburn is getting Vanderbilt in third down situations where Riddick can be a spy. Get him in a 3rd and 6, 7, where you feel like it's a spy situation. If it's 3rd and short, I don't know. I mean, I guess you could still do it, but if you can force them into some situations where you feel good about calling the spy situation, then Riddick gets involved. But a lot depends on the secondary. Secondary has to cover, allowing Riddick to then make a play. So everybody's got to play well. But yeah, I would imagine this is another game where you see Riddick, out there and see him making some plays, trying to sort of contain Pavia. The other thing is the rush lanes. The defensive line, to me, has not been great at keeping their integrity in the rush lanes. It's led to some breakout runs for quarterbacks. They've got to fix that. They've got to stay in their lane. Don't make it easy. Don't come out of your lanes and make it easy on him to scramble. Stay in your lanes, and I think Auburn can get some pressure. Walked in. I think Jalen McLeod. I think they can get some pressure if they'll stay in their lane. It also makes it easier for Riddick. Because if they stay in their lane, Riddick should have a pretty good idea, or whoever, if it is spying him, should have a pretty good idea of where he might want to escape to. What you got, James? How many touches do you think Hunter gets? I would imagine it's going to look similar last week. I mean, it was such a good recipe. I think the goal will be 15-plus carries. You know, he got to 23 against Kentucky. Of course, they just started really pounding the rock, and it kind of played in. I sort of think this is going to be a little bit more competitive game. I mean, I don't see Auburn reeling off 24 straight, or I don't know. I think it could be a little more competitive. Vanderbilt's a little bit better team at the moment, well coached. And so I think the goal's got to be 15-plus carries. I don't know if he'll get to 23. That kind of depends on how the game goes and the success that's going on. But 15-plus carries is the minimum. Should always be the minimum for Jarquez. And then I'd say 3 to 4 catches. So let's say 4 to 5 targets for Hunter, maybe 4. Let's say 4 targets for Jarquez out of the backfield, a swing pass. 20 touches a game should be the minimum for Jarquez. Some kind of combination, run, pass, whatever. 20 touches should be the minimum, should be the floor in terms of getting involved. It's hard to predict. It's hard to predict carries though, because one, it depends on Auburn's offensive line and how they're controlling things. It depends on if Vanderbilt starts stacking the box. It depends on then if they start stacking the box and Auburn's, if it's a close game, just Freeze. Does he throw the ball? Does he do what he did last week where he stays with the run? A lot of things are going to depend on that because there's just so many things that sort of dictate, I think, on how Freeze calls plays. The best chance Jarquez has of going over 20 carries is when you get to Auburn's up by 10 or Auburn's up by 14 and it's late. Then you can ride in. That's the situation too where you do that. But you got Michael. Where does this year's basketball team compare strictly shooting wise to the 2019 team? Seems like Blink will be elite. I mean, that 19 team that went to the Final Four became so lethal. Look, Miles Kelly's fantastic. Is he Bryce Brown? I don't think he's far off. I don't think he'll hit as many. That offense and the way it was working and Bryce Brown, it was built for Bryce Brown to just shoot tons of threes. I think this offense is a tad different. You have a legit low post scorer. So, like, I don't see Miles getting the quantity of threes that Bryce got, but Miles can shoot the basketball. Miles is going to, I think, has the potential to at times look like Bryce Brown in terms of just a sharpshooter. Like, you better get on it. He's going to knock down some threes in transition. Past that, though, Jared could shoot. McLemore could step out and shoot. So I don't know overall. Like, you got Denver, he can shoot. Tahad is a freshman, so it's hard to count on him. So I don't know. It's a different team. It's a different team. I don't know about shooting. Miles, I think, is going to shoot the lights out. I don't know overall if they're going to be that kind of three-point shooting team. I think they're I think they're the best offensive team probably Bruce has had in terms of variety, ways they can attack. You toss Chad Baker in. This team's got a lot of different ways I think they can get after you. Defensive length will be elite. Agreed. Between Janai Broome, between Dylan Cardwell, between Chaney Johnson, between Chad Baker, between Denver Jones, who can really defend. Look, I'm telling you, even Jarquez Hunter, who's just a true freshman and raw, but Jarquez Hunter has unbelievable athletic ability. He will get after it defensively. Now he's going to make some mistakes. He might overrun a pass. They got to sort of fix some of that. He did a little bit of that against Furman. They got a little too aggressive, but Jarquez is athletic enough to guard. Tahad is fearless and will try to guard. They're going to get after it defensively. They're going to block shots. They're going to have some perimeter. The ability to guard out there. See, last year, Aiden and Trey could get after it a little bit, but you got Denver, you got Jarquez. Chris Moore will guard. So yeah, like athletically, I think they're going to be really good defensively, and cause some problems. It's going to be a fun team that just sort of has to grow together. Everybody figure out their role. But like on paper, you look at them, they kind of have everything: low post scoring, some outside shooting, the ability to defend. They're going to have length to rebound on both ends. Probably the biggest question mark is point guard. And I'm not saying I'm worried. I'm not saying it's a concern, but as Bruce pointed out, J.P. Pegues didn't play point guard for Auburn last year. Denver Jones has really never played point guard. Tahad's really never played point guard. There's a lot of newness that's got to be figured out at the point guard position. I'm not saying they're not capable, and I think that they'll figure out a sort of a rotation there. But there's a lot of newness and kind of what that will look like and feel like and what he wants out of the point guard. It's going to take games for Pegues, Jones, and Pettiford within game action to understand exactly what Bruce wants from his point guards, game in, game out, when to be aggressive, when to not, when to push it. All those things are just going to take a little bit of time to figure out, but the potential's there and the talent's there. It's just going to sort of be a combination of sort of figuring out how those guys work together and doing it. Magic, after this year, Broome finished as one of the Auburn best. Yeah, absolutely. No question about it. I mean, statistically, he's already like one of the more statistically, one of the more proven college basketball players ever. Now, part of that's the length of time he's played. He's going to play for 5 years. So he's going to be one of probably 20 to 30 college basketball players ever to have the amount of points he's going to have, the amount of rebounds he's going to have, the amount of assists he's going to have. I don't have it in front of me, but there's some thresholds in terms of players that have hit X number of points, X number of rebounds, X number of assists, that he's going to be one of like 10, 15 ever. But as of Auburn, yeah, I mean, now he's been here 3 years. So he's not, you don't really think of him as a transfer anymore. Sometimes transfers come in one and done. He spent 3 years here. I mean, he's an Auburn guy. And so, yeah, he's going to go down as one of the best ever. You know, he's got a great opportunity to be kind of a Naismith finalist type player this year, a top 10 player in the country. In the same line that Jabari does. He just does it differently. Janai does it differently. He just kind of sometimes Janai will just sort of be working, and you look up and you're like, he's got 14 and 10. So it's not always flashy, but yeah, I think after this year you're going to put Janai as one of the best Auburn basketball players of all time. I think there's no question. If the D line, what you got, B man? I think if the D line can rush Pavia, Auburn can be in good shape. Over under Falk gets 2 sacks. I like the Falk one. Last week I was unsure. I think there's a lot of potential here because Pavia is going to like to scramble. He's going to look for ways to get out of the pocket. And so there's going to be some opportunities for sacks, but it's just going to depend on keeping your rush lanes integrity. Falk, I tell you what, I would go more on pressures for Falk, and here's why. They could get great pressure. Pavia is hard to sack. It's going to be hard to bring down. And so I almost think it'll be a situation like last week where somebody like Keiron Crawford or somebody else blitzes off the edge and forces Pavia into Falk, and he gets the sack. That could definitely happen. I see that more of a scenario than necessarily Falk just winning a one-on-one and bringing Pavia down. He could. He might. I'm not saying he can't. Falk's great. But they're going to have to stay in their rush lanes, use Keiron, use Jalen, even a blitzing linebacker. Maybe try to force Pavia one way, and then if you've got Falk or somebody that can hold their lines, you can hold their rush lanes. You can get him down and get some sacks. Just got to keep your rush lanes. You've got to keep the integrity. Vanderbilt's number one in the conference in third down conversions. Auburn's not been great at third down conversions, certainly in those third and longs. I think that's the game. Auburn's going to, I think, play pretty decent defense. Vanderbilt's going to play their ball control stuff. Auburn's ability to get off the field on third down is the ball game. I think Auburn's offense, if Auburn gets offense can get to 60 plays, 65 plays, I think they put points on the board and win. But that's going to take Auburn's defense getting off the field and getting Vanderbilt off the field. If they don't, Vanderbilt will hold this ball for 35 minutes. And Auburn will run 57, 58 plays. And that's going to make it really, really tough. Then if you toss in a turnover by the offense or something, it becomes hard. So defense getting off the field, I literally think getting off the field, specifically the third and longs. If it's 3rd and 1, that's tough. Okay, they may convert that. You can't have the demoralizing plays of 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, Pavia scrambles, find somebody, we're back on the field again. That stuff kills you. It's so demoralizing. That can't happen. Corey, higher chance of happening the rest of the season, 1-3 or 3-1. Oh boy. Well, 1-3 or 3-1. What's the higher percent chance of happening? Oh, God, that's tough. It's assuming they're going to beat La Monroe. You're basically saying you can get. I mean, I would say it's a higher chance of 3-1 just because they've got a very good shot against Vanderbilt, obviously a very good shot against La Monroe. Now you're just 1 win away, whereas 1-3 means you've got to lose as a favorite to Vanderbilt. I guess that could happen, and then you lose to A&M at home. I'd say 3-1 just because I like the chances of them winning today or winning Saturday. Then you beat La Monroe and you're 1 away. If the Vanderbilt game was more of a 50-50 game, then maybe you go either way. But Auburn's a favorite there. They're favorite La Monroe. And then who knows what A&M. What's crazy is Auburn could come into that game against Texas A&M 5-5. And that spread could be almost a pick 'em. A&M could walk in here as a ranked 5th in the country. Seriously. They could walk in here ranked 5th in the country. But if Auburn beats Vanderbilt and then beats La Monroe, the Vegas spreads are going to go, listen, this Auburn team should have beat Arkansas, should have beat Oklahoma, maybe should have beat Cal, whatever, but they were certainly in all those games. They're going to look at Jordan-Hare Stadium. They're going to look at what Auburn potentially is capable of. And on a 3-game winning streak, that line is going to be incredibly low for what you would think a top 5-6 team on the road against a 5-5 team should be. That spread is going to be, you're going to look at it and go, whoa, how is a team that's 5-5 playing at home against a team that's 5th in the country? How is it that close of a pickup? You watch. Taylor, what do you think the strengths of this year's basketball team will be? Yeah, I think athletic ability, one, just pure athletic ability. If you think about last year's team, you've got all the key players back. You lose Trey, Aiden, Katie. Now, Katie was athletic, high energy, but Katie wasn't like a leaper. Katie didn't play above the rim, but he hustled, and it was a pretty good athlete. I wouldn't say Katie's a great athlete. I'd say Katie hustled, played with energy, didn't play above the rim. Aiden's a good athlete in that he plays college basketball. Like he's not a bad athlete, but Aiden wasn't explosive. Aiden wasn't electric in that way. He certainly didn't play above the rim. Trey was athletic. Trey was an athletic guy. But like you bring in Jarquez, Tahad, phenomenal athletes. Miles, athletic. I think the athletic ability is bumped up a little bit. JP's a pretty good athlete, but I like Jarquez and Tahad are elite athletes. They play above the rim. They can get up. And because of that athletic, they can defend. They might make mistakes, but they can defend. So I think athletic ability is their number one sort of attribute. Past that, probably their ability to play defense. I think they're going to be tough to score on if they're locked in and communicating. I think they're going to be a very good defensive team. And then it's just going to kind of come down to shooting, being a consistent shooting team, and then sort of figuring out the rotation at point guard and how that's going to work. I think they're going to figure that out. It's going to take a little time. Houston game could look rough. I don't know. Just going to take a little bit of time, but this team will figure it out. They'll gel to start to get some good things going. But yeah, just pure athletic ability, it's going to be up there. James, I know he hasn't played an actual competitive game, but how good can Pettiford be long term? Fantastic. He steps out there in the exhibition game against Furman. Right when he hits the court, pull up three, no hesitation, drains it, hits another one a couple minutes later, has a breakaway dunk, has an alley-oop to Jarquez Howard. Has an unbelievable play, saving a ball, jumping out of bounds back to Denver. Like, he is, I've said it since the summer, since the spring, I don't know, since whenever he arrived. There is a fearlessness to Tahad Pettiford and Jarquez Howard, by the way, that is rare for true freshmen. It's very rare. But Tahad he's better than Jarquez. Tahad has the skills right now to be a really good player. He's got the fearlessness, and he's already got leadership attributes right now. Watch this team from the get-go. Watch Tahad on the court. Watch his confidence. Watch how he talks to his teammates. It is very much like Jabari. I'm not saying he's Jabari. They're different players. Jabari is 6'9", 6'10", shooting threes. Totally different type of impact on the game. Tahad isn't going to have that kind of impact because of what Jabari is. But intangibles, Tahad has a lot of those. Now, I don't know if Tahad's like the hardest worker. Like Jabari came in and was the hardest worker. But Tahad's up there. He's a hard worker. I don't know if Bruce would call Tahad his hardest worker. But that's not a slight on Tahad. Chaney's a hard worker, things like that. But in terms of being bold, being fearless, talking to his teammates, telling them what's up, Tahad will do all that. And then you toss in that he can knock down a three, he can drive, he can pass, he's going to be good. He's going to be good. He's only going to get better. The more he gets used to, give him some grace when they go play Houston and Maui, and because you don't know how true freshmen will react. He might try to do too much. He might be overwhelmed or whatever. He's going to be good though. I think he's got, outside of Jabari, Okoro was really good, but Okoro was so good defensively. His offense came on. Okoro's offense in college that 1 year was really just because he was such a good athlete. He would score around the rim. He would knock down some threes, but really Okoro impacted the game defensively. I think outside of Jabari, Tahad's the best true freshman in the Bruce Pearl era. Chuma, I don't really care who else you can take. I think just take it all into consideration. I think he's the second best true freshman behind Jabari. Dylan, do you think Freeze will try to implement more passing this game since Jared Curtis will be in attendance? I don't know. This is something that Cole has talked a lot about over the course of the season. I've never necessarily been a subscriber to Freeze placating to recruits. You know, I mean, maybe he wants to. I don't know, man. That's such a weird thing to be in the middle of a game and say, "Oh, I have a recruit in town. I need to throw more than I should," only because he's such a what is the defense giving me? What do I can do game plan wise? What's there? What's in front of me? Type of play caller. I don't know. I think it's in his nature to want to attack downfield. So I don't really think it matters who's in attendance. I think it's just in his nature. I mean, he talked about it in the Kentucky game. Late in the Kentucky game, he was so tempted to throw when they kept stacking the box. He wanted to take advantage. He's looking for ways to take advantage of the defense. Period. It's like I don't know that it matters who's in attendance. I think he's like, but I just think he wants to attack through the air as much as he can, and so I do think Auburn will attack more in the air downfield in this game than Kentucky, probably even Missouri. Back home, in your comfort zone a little bit. Obviously, it'll depend maybe on what's happening on the other side of the ball. If Vanderbilt comes out and starts controlling the ball the way New Mexico State did last year, the way Vanderbilt did against Bama, that might change things for Freeze, where he goes, okay, here we go again. This is a game where it's ball control. It looks like Vanderbilt's going to be able to hold the ball a little bit. I can't go out and be super aggressive and throw the ball and go 3 and out and give them the ball right back. I'm going to have to maybe dial it down a little bit to just try to almost play the same way. That I think will impact things more than necessarily who's in attendance. But I don't know. It's going to be an interesting game. It's so important for Auburn to get off to a good start. It's critical. Bill, how nuts is it to really talk ball in BP's 11th season after Lebo and the Barbie? Yeah, Lebo and Barbie are such distant memories. At the same time, having grown up going to Auburn basketball games, I mean, I was literally in Beardy's Memorial Coliseum when Auburn beat Vanderbilt in 1999 to clinch the SEC championship in that season. I was in Beardy's for that game. It's still 11 years in. It's still surreal to talk about the success BP's had. It's maybe now just starting to become the norm of Auburn's going to be good, and they're going to play they're playing a tough schedule, and this is just what it is. But it's still funny sometimes you catch yourself going, man, like Auburn's 11th in the country preseason. They're going to play Houston and Duke and Iowa State and Purdue and Ohio State. And they got a player up for Naismith preseason player of the year. And that's just Auburn basketball now. You have to really remember the late 90s, early 2000s, certainly the Barbie era. You have to have really lived that to appreciate everything BP's doing. If you kind of came along late in Barbie, or maybe you came along 10 years ago, you started keeping up, you don't really appreciate what's happening now. It's impossible to. I mean, I was in Auburn Arena covering Barbie when they had 3,500 people, maybe for an SEC basketball game. Now you're about to have 9,000 plus people sold out Neville Arena for a game that literally doesn't count. I mean, you had fans. I was in Furman. I went to the game in Furman in Greenville, South Carolina. You had 500 Auburn fans there. Maybe they drove up from Atlanta. Maybe a few of them lived in Greenville. But you had 500-600 Auburn fans that were at that game watching an exhibition game on the road. D. Wade, how big of a deal is it for Auburn to get a national championship in basketball before Bama? Feels like whoever gets there first will have the upper hand, and that's. Well, I don't know if they'll necessarily have the upper hand moving forward, but it's going to become a thing where it's just bragging rights. Like Auburn will forever be able to say we made a Final Four first, right? Now Alabama turned around and followed that up. It's so funny how that happened. By the way, Auburn and Alabama have been pedestrian in basketball for 2 decades, and then all of a sudden Auburn gets good, makes the Final Four, and then a few years Alabama does it. That's so funny. And now they're the best two teams in the league preseason. So I don't know about like having the upper hand. To me, it'll just be like a bragging rights thing. If one of them can get there first, they can say we did it first. Like Auburn can always say, Auburn will always have. Auburn was the first school from the state of Alabama to make the Final Four. That's forever in the history books, and that's pretty cool to say you were the first to do it. You broke through. Nobody in the state of Alabama made a Final Four before you did. But man, winning a national title in basketball is so freaking hard. Unless you are a blue blood and you just roll through McDonald's All-Americans so regularly that every time you get to the tournament you've got enough chances. You just have enough chances. It's so hard, and I obviously I hope they can do it. And I would love for BP to get over the hump before he leaves Auburn, but only a few years left probably before that'll happen. But I don't know. Shoot, they both could go to the Final Four this year. They're both good enough to. Corey. Oh, here, by the way, what's crazy is the Sweet 16 Elite Eight this year. There's one in Atlanta. So if Auburn can, the strength of schedule for Auburn, I need to ask BP this, but I know he wanted to build strength of schedule up for seeding, but you've got Atlanta out there as a regional host, Elite Eight, Sweet 16 Elite Eight to go to the Final Four. Auburn's strength of schedule is good enough. If they can win, if they can go about 500 between Houston, Duke, Iowa State, Michigan State, whoever they play there, Purdue, Ohio State, win a few of those, lose a few of those, fine. Then have a really good season in the SEC. Get yourself in the South. If Auburn can have a good enough strength of schedule and a good enough season to get to the South region, just win two. Win two, and you get to Atlanta. Imagine how many Auburn fans will find a way into the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. If Auburn wins 2 games in the tournament, to get in the South, Auburn wins 2, and they're in the Sweet 16 in Atlanta. I mean, tournament tickets are tough, but Auburn fans will be in there in big numbers, and Auburn will have a pretty cool opportunity to make it back. But long way to go before that. Corey, how long, if ever, until NIL becomes a problem for Auburn in basketball? Well, I mean, it's not a problem now. Like, Auburn has good NIL support. I would say the problem is the level Auburn wants to compete at and should compete at now, and the level that Bruce Pearl wants to compete at. If you want to try to take kids away from Arkansas, Kentucky, even Alabama now, Tennessee, Texas is going to get up. Their NIL support needs to grow. So, like, they're not in a bad place. They're going to get good players. They've got good support. They just don't have – it's not on par with Auburn's preseason, the number 2 team in the league. You know, they won the tournament last year. I would say the NIL support is not quite on par with where the program, the results the program is putting out. Like, Auburn over the last 5-6 years has been maybe the best team in the league. Alabama, Auburn, Kentucky, Tennessee. They've been. I mean, you could make an argument. NIL's not there. It's good, but it's not there. So it'd be nice to even those up. What'll be interesting is rev sharing. I don't know all the details, but revenue sharing is what could be interesting in terms of how does that change things? Does it help Auburn? Does it hurt Auburn in terms of rev sharing? I don't know enough about that. That's more when it becomes a rev sharing model. Does it help or hurt? I asked one of the assistants. I said, "Is this thing going to help or hurt?" He thought it could hurt them. I don't know the ins and outs. I need to have like a sort of a deeper discussion with him about it. But I think that's more the interesting thing in NIL. I think donors will step up and Auburn will up their NIL game after this offseason. If there's any chance of keeping Miles Kelly, which I don't think they anticipate being able to do, but if you even wanted to contemplate that, that's costly. And then you're looking at getting 4 high school kids, 5 to 6 portal kids, and everybody in the portal wants something. You know, out of it, you're going to want at least 2 studs in the portal. 3 if you could get them. I bet it'll end up looking like 2 studs in the portal and 3 quality value picks in the portal, if that makes sense. So, you know, maybe two guys in the portal that demand a lot and that you have to go beat, a legit school for, and then maybe three that you find that are more value picks where you're saying, you don't, maybe you only have to pay them 150, 200,000. The other guys you're having to pay $500,000, that kind of thing. If I had to sort of think about how that might split up anyway. So it'll be interesting. Florida Atlantic's gonna be a good game tonight. They are, they're good. I mean, they're rebuilding a little bit. So they're not quite the team that made the Final Four. But they're good. Auburn at home. I mean, Auburn will roll. I would assume Auburn will roll in this thing. So it'll be an interesting game to see. What are some predictions, by the way? Toss out, as we get through these questions, toss out some score predictions for Auburn and Vanderbilt. Let me know what you think is going to happen. Connor, you know of anyone who's streaming the game tonight? No, I don't. I mean, not that I know of. Obviously, I think you can listen to it through the app, through the Auburn app. I think you can listen to it on the radio, that kind of deal. But no, I don't know that anybody's streaming it. People were joking with me last week, telling me to stream it, like go live on Twitter. I think I would probably be frowned upon. There's probably some rights to streaming a game inside Neville Arena for everybody to see that would probably cause an issue. So I don't think we can really do that. Q, I would think rev sharing would allow donations to be tax deductible for NIL. I don't know, Hugh. I really don't. That stuff is like, there's so many twists and turns to that I don't even really pay attention until it's a thing, until it actually becomes a thing, and then I'll go try to dive in and figure out, okay, how is this going to impact? But I'm not sure. Yeah, that's a question for Alan Head. Which, by the way, we're going to start doing some basketball shows now. The basketball season's here. We'll get some basketball shows going, and I'll see if we can get Alan on some of those basketball shows as we roll forward. Man, Session is popping. If you're downtown Auburn, come down to Session, downtown Auburn, Magnolia Avenue. Come by here, have a drink. 4 to 7 happy hour. Have a drink. Go get dinner. Come have a drink. But they're crowded right now. I mean, I'm looking. Every booth is filled. The 2 couches are filled. There's some space over here in the lounge area right here. And then the bar seating is available. So if you're listening, you want to come down and have a drink, nobody's at the bar at the moment. So you got a bunch of good bar seating. Connor, who do you predict to be the starting 5 by game 1? That's a good question. And I'm going to try to, after this exhibition game, I'm going to try to dig and see if I can find out. I think game 1, I would say right now, JP at the 1, Denver at the 2. Man, I would say Miles at the 3, Janai at the 4, Dylan at the 5. Game 1. Now the Dylan Janai thing, that there are going to be games they start together. There's going to be games they don't. That's going to depend a bunch on matchups. In other words, can Janai defend whoever their 4 is, or do they have a super athletic 4 that you're like, okay, I think we don't think Janai can guard that guy. Janai and Dylan, that combination will a lot of times depend on who the other person's 4-man is and whether Janai can guard them out on the perimeter and move his feet. And a lot of that will depend. The other thing about the Miles deal is if JP's the starting point guard, and JP's played well in practice the last few weeks, if he stays at the 1, you have to start Denver. He's the best defender. He's a veteran. So you got to start Denver. And then you got to start Miles because Miles is, I think, one of the best players on the team. I love the idea of bringing Chad off the bench. They did it in the game of Furman. I think Chad brings a pop. Now, that's what they did last year, and then they moved Chad into the starting lineup because he just was so valuable, but you didn't have Miles. I think I love JP, Denver, Miles, and then start who you want, Janai Dillon or Chaney Janai. Really doesn't matter, 4 or 5. And then right away, your second rotation, you could pull JP out. You could move Denver to the 1. You could move Miles to the 2. You could bring Chad in at the 3. Then you could rotate out Petsahot at the 1, Miles at the 2. that 1-2-3 is going to be crazy. Jakai could play 2-3. How they rotate is going to be wild. Once Miles now that Miles back, that's going to be really interesting. So the starting lineup's not going to be a big deal because 4 minutes in, it's going to be all hell's going to break loose. You know what I mean? 3.5 minutes in, it's rotations, and here we go. But if I had to guess, I feel like Janai's going to start. Denver's going to start. Miles is going to. Now, the only thing that I might hold Miles back is because he's missed some time. How many minutes does he play? Is he 100% back by Vermont? Do they feel completely good with his health, his conditioning? But assuming he's 100%, I don't see how you don't start Janai, Miles, and Denver. To me, those guys are starting. Then maybe if Denver to start at the 1, you could go Denver, Miles, Chad. But I kind of think JP's been playing better too. So, but I love Denver, Miles, Janai. To me, have to start. I think those are probably your 3 best, most all-around players. But again, it's just going to be the rotation's going to be crazy. Michael, do you think there will be some success with smaller 4 with the 2 center lineup? Obviously, this is depending on matchups. Yeah, listen, a team that doesn't have a 4 that's super athletic, if you let Auburn play Janai and Dylan together a decent bit, good luck. Because Janai's still going to get down low. He can still pop out and hit threes. He can defend block shots. Dylan can block shots. The other thing dependent for Janai is his perimeter shooting. If Janai continues to just be if he just ticks up a little bit as a 3-point shooter, or at least remains that threat, then Dylan can hang around the goal. That's probably the only thing is offensively when they're in there, Janai needs to be out a little bit because otherwise they're both just hanging around the rim. And so I think some of it's going to depend on Janai's ability to stay on the perimeter, things like that. But yeah, if those 2 guys are out there, if you don't have a 4 that can take advantage of Janai, then Janai and Dylan are going to take advantage of whoever you've got. They're both going to crash the boards. They're both going to have length to block shots, and it's going to be a real challenge for teams to play against them. My guess is they play together 8 to 10 minutes a game. 10 would be high. I see sort of 2 rotations, maybe 3. 8 to 10 minutes together is sort of my guess at the moment in terms of how much they play together. James, how big of an upgrade is Miles compared to Katie Johnson? Massive upgrade. Is Katie a better defender? I would say yes, but here's the thing about Katie. Katie made a lot of plays defensively. He also made a lot of mistakes defensively. And I think people look past that because he had high energy and he would be that ball hawk and he would make plays that are fun to watch defensively. But Katie had a lot of breakdowns. He would miss his guy. He'd overrun a ball. Katie had a lot of mental errors on defense too. You didn't see those, or they were overshadowed because he had a lot of energy. So was Katie more of did he wreak more havoc on the defensive end than maybe Miles will? Yes, but what Miles brings, shooting the basketball, pull up, his ability, not just the 3, his ability to drive and pull up at the elbow along the baseline, is far outweighs what Katie brought offensively. A consistency there, height. I think Miles will be a good defender, but then also as a teammate and a leader, I don't want to hate on KD, but it's night and day. KD was emotional. He was not always the best teammate. He disrupted things. It was not always smooth with KD Johnson on and off the court. It was a headache a lot of times. Miles is a 180 from that. Poised, calm, quiet, doesn't run his mouth in practice, comes to do his business, practices hard, will hold other players accountable. That's Miles Kelly. So when you factor in their overall skill set plus what they bring in terms of intangibles, not even close. Bob, was it a promise of starting or NIL that kept Cardwell at Auburn? NIL. I mean, he wanted to come back. And he had some NIL demands. They weren't. I'm not going to go into the numbers, but they weren't unreasonable. And so it's kind of a no-brainer for Auburn. They did talk to him about, hey, we also want to play you more minutes. And one of the things they told Janai was, hey, we want to play you more at the 4. So I wrote about that at Auburn Live. during the portal season. I said, hey, they're talking to Dylan a little bit about trying to get him more minutes, and they're talking to Janai a little bit about maybe you can play a little 4, maybe Dylan can play a little 5. So Dylan's minutes should go up a tick, and Janai can play a little. So, because Janai needed to show something at the 4 if he wanted to play professionally. But mostly NIL for Dylan. I mean, it was mostly NIL, honestly. He loves Auburn, but just make him happy, feel like he's getting what he's worth, and he's fine. And he's super aggressive now on NIL. Dylan, of any athlete at Auburn University, Dylan's probably the most aggressive in terms of seeking out NIL opportunities. And that guy, if you own a business in Auburn, you have probably heard from Dylan Cardwell. So I'll give him credit on that. I'll give him a lot of credit on that. Cole can't join us today, by the way, since no worries. Give me some last thoughts on Auburn Vanderbilt before we get out of here. I really think it's going to be a fantastic atmosphere. I really think it is. See ya. I think it's going to be incredible. I think the fans getting to come back home. 11:45, perfect weather. They're not waiting until 6:45 to play a night game. I think people are excited to get home. I think it's going to be great. I really do think it's going to be a great atmosphere. What you got, Hugh? There's a concern of mine that Vandy plays very tight in ball control. We played one half of good football. I agree. I would say Auburn played 3 quarters. I mean, Auburn dominated Kentucky second, third, fourth quarter, completely and utterly dominated that game. Still missed some opportunities, but completely dominated. But yeah, I wrote about it in kind of the predictions and game thoughts and things like that. Was Auburn still has to show that they can consistently be a good football team against a well-coached team. Vanderbilt's better than Kentucky. Vanderbilt's probably better than Missouri right now, even though Missouri beat it. And so, yeah, Auburn, they need to go have a no turnover game. Go have a no turnover game where you feel like you were in control start to finish. That doesn't mean it has to be a 3 touchdown win, but make it feel like you were playing well and you were in control of what's going on. It would go a long way. The ball control aspect of Vandy is a real thing. Alabama had the ball 18 minutes against Vanderbilt, and you think back to what New Mexico State did against Auburn last year, Tim Beck, Jerry Kill, Diego, they're gonna try to repeat what they did last year. Say, this is how you beat Hugh Freeze. This is how you frustrate him. This is how you get him off kilter. Control the ball. That's why I go back to Auburn's ability to get off the field on third downs. That's where it's going to be. You get off the field on third downs, there's no ball control. Get them off the field. And you give your offense enough drives, enough plays, enough possessions to do damage. If you cannot get New Mexico State off the field, if they dink and dunk, Vanderbilt. If they just 3rd and 5, complete a 6-yard pass. 3rd and 6, he scrambles and he runs for 7. If that stuff happens, I don't like Auburn. I don't like it. So that if the ball control is fairly even, I think that's fine. It can't be off kilter. Auburn hasn't been consistent enough offensively to beat a good team by holding the ball only 24 minutes. I mean, it could happen, but if you only have the ball, if it's 35-25 against a good team, Auburn better have 0 turnovers, 0. And they better have some big plays in the passing game because 25 minutes is going to be tight in terms of making enough happen and scoring enough points. Because if they got the ball 35 minutes, they've got points on the board unless they just go down and kick a bunch of field goals. So, yeah, got to get off the field on third downs, and I feel great about what Auburn's got going. It's going to be a good one. Any more questions, any more score thoughts, pop them in there. Otherwise, we'll probably call it a day. What you got, James? 31-17 Auburn. So you're with Jeffrey. I think they're going to let Pavia run through Hugh again. They aren't going to let Pavia. If Auburn wins this game by 14, I will be a little bit surprised. Not shocked, little surprised, pleasantly surprised. Just because Vanderbilt's been solid and they hold the ball and they're fairly well coached, and so if you can beat them by 14, I think that's something. I do. I mean, Vanderbilt's losses are 3 points to Missouri, a fluke loss to Georgia State. I don't know how that happened. And then what? A touchdown to Texas. I mean, so nobody's gone out there and beaten Vanderbilt by 14. So if Auburn does it, it's impressive. That internal motivation, I've talked about it. I haven't seen a lot of people write about it. Certainly people nationally aren't talking about it because I don't think they quite understand the internal motivation for Freeze, for Josh Aldridge, for Vontrell Williams, for Ben Aguamaya, anybody else that was on that Liberty crew that suffered the loss the last year at Liberty. And then, of course, all those guys were here last year. You toss in the Auburn players that were here last year that returned. A lot of internal motivation against Pavia, but for Freeze and the coaches, a lot of internal motivation against Jerry Kill and Tim Beck and these guys to go out and not be outcoached again. Don't go get him. You get embarrassed a third time and outcoached by these 3 straight years. That's a hit to the ego, and I don't think they want any part of that. So I'm, you got to go out there and do it. But I think this is going to be one they want badly. And so it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I think that first quarter is going to be fun, physical. Also be curious, the coin toss. If Auburn wins the coin toss, I bet you Hugh's taking the ball. I bet it's not going to be a thing where they defer. I bet you he takes the ball. Says, go ahead and give us the ball. I'm going to go ahead and get a possession under my belt no matter what. I could easily see that happen. All right, Zach, I guess we'll call it, man. I appreciate everybody hopping on. We'll be back here. Actually, we won't. Another bye week, second bye week, which is unusual, but first time we've ever done this with 2 bye weeks. So we won't be back next week. Auburn will have a bye. We'll start the basketball show, so be on the watch out for that. But we'll come back before Auburn hosts La Monroe. That'll be the next time we come back for the Friday show and all that good stuff. So appreciate everybody joining us. Session Cocktails. Come down and have a drink. We'll see you guys next time.